decided that they are going to come out and they are going to say an abundant amount of things. And with those abundant amount of things, they have decided that they are going to take a leap and say, hey, we believe other teams have breached. So our first thing I want to tell you, we're going to go over a couple of things. All right, we're going to talk about the statement that you just briefly saw. We're going to talk about the regs, which you just briefly saw. And we're going to talk about what I think should be done going forward in the future to not only enforce, but to also penalize these teams as far as the cost cap goes. And this is across the board. Like, I know a lot of people like to come here and say, oh, it's all about Red Bull and hey, no, it's not. It's about the sport. It's about going forward, what we're going to do to other people that decide to breach. But let's go ahead and get into this. First, let's get into this statement that was made, right? And once again, this is Red Bull basically, to me, I believe, putting their foot again inside of their mouth and testing that shoe that has been walked around the paddock, been walked around the laboratories and all of that good stuff. So you'll see right here, according basically in sum of all, they believe that at least 6 teams have breached the cost cap. 6 teams have breached the cost cap. Well, we know last time, this is fact, we heard Christian Horner say as much to this. He indeed and Red Bull were one of the teams, if not more egregiously, breached the cost cap rules, right? We had Aston Martin, and then we had Williams. Williams being like the least. They breached the least. Like, they had a procedural breach, right? Aston Martin and Red Bull escalated their situations with minor breaches. So we're going to also go into like what is the difference between minor and major. And I'm going to tell you a little bit something about the general terminology of major, because really there is no, there's major, but it's not outlined that way. Jay London, what's going on, fam? Thanks for the super chat. Earning your points toward that VIP box I see. I got you. Also, new Wolfpack podcast shirts came in. Get with me in the Discord group. Get your shipping address. I'm going to ship them out. I've already spent, last year, I looked at it. I think I spent close to $3,000 shipping out to Wolfpack family members, and I am not mad about it. I really appreciate you all, and that is what I'm willing to do. I told you when we started the VIP program, when we started doing the shirts, that I was paying that shipping. It was because I wanted to pay my respects to you all for what you do supporting me here. So I'm willing to do that again this season, and we're already started. So let's get into this. 6 teams breached, right? The cost cap during 2022 financial year is what they're saying. Faced up to an unprecedented inflation, Christian Horner says. Some teams stated during the F1 commission, a danger of 2022 is there could be 6 teams in breach of the cap. Said the team's boss, energy prices have been exponentially, but thankfully we've protected from that. But there is also a chance of several teams, okay? We've heard this before, right? We've been through this before. So let me tell you this. Stefano Domenicali has also come out and said that he is in fear, basically, that teams are going to, that an abundant amount of teams may indeed breach, given the precedents that they set with Red Bull. No duh that you think this. And this reason is because you indeed did not set the precedents to where it would be like, you know what, we really should think twice before we breach the cost cap, y'all. Did you see what happened to Red Bull? Red Bull breached. And did you see what happened to them? Is that what we want for our team? Is that what we want for our future? Is that what we want for our drivers? You didn't do that. You lightweight looked in bed with Red Bull. You assessed a penalty, which we're going to talk about that too, because initially they got a offering from the ABA. They were able to go back, reject it, reconstruct it, and drop it down, lessen it, and then accept that. So we're going to talk about that too, about going forward. But yeah, Stefano, Ben, Ross Braun, Mr. Teeth, gummy bears, if that, your teeth are made of gummy bears. You didn't set a precedence that would say to other teams, it's not worth it. What you did was set a precedence to other teams that you can still get your championship. You can still be assessed a penalty that is far less than you're going to accumulate by winning the championship. And the wind tunnel time, we'll bargain with you on that. Have your engineer, have your aerodynamicists come in here, tell us how badly that's going to affect you, and we'll drop that down too. You didn't set a good precedence. So let's look at some of these regulations as they are outlined and talk about them first, okay? So we're going to talk about the different type of breaches, at least the most important ones, okay? We're going to talk about first the procedural breach, all right? So in a procedural breach, We're going to go down here. Ledge 43, this is why you set the tone so others think twice. Exactly right. All right. So in a procedural breach, in the event that the cost cap adjudication panel determines that an F1 team has committed a procedural breach, the cost cap adjudication panel shall impose financial penalty unless A, the cost cap adjudication panel determines that sufficient mitigating factors exist justifying to take no further action, or the cost cap adjudication panel determines that the sufficient aggravated factors exist, in which case it shall impose minor sporting penalty in addition to the financial penalty or in lieu of the financial penalty. All right. So those are the grounds, basic grounds for your procedural breach. Okay. Procedural breach is where Williams was. Their third party, the company or whoever, the auditor that they contracted to do their situation, failed to turn in the documentation on time. So it was a procedural breach. It's not that when they turned the documentation in that there were other things found that they breached as far as minor or material. Okay. Sylvia Wick, Red Bull Racing, going to do it again. Smash that like button. And what Sylvia Wick said, we're going to get into that because there's something that's outlined in the regulations that directly responds to if that situation occurs, what we and what other teams should see done to a team that does it multiple times. So we're also going to get into that. All right. So let's go ahead back over here. We're going to talk about the next area of a type of breaching. And that's going to be a minor overspend, okay? A minor overspend arises when an F1 team submits its full reporting documentation and relevant costs. Reported therein exceeds the cost cap by less than 5%. Or, okay, the following review of F1 team's reporting documentation, the conclusion of an investigation undertaken by the cost cap administration, independent audit firm appointed by the cost cap, the F1 team's relevant costs have been determined to exceed the cost cap by less than 5%. A condu, what it do, fam? Everybody's watching them on how they gonna handle this breach this time. He says Red Bull don't respect them as authority based on the slap on the wrist last breach. That is true. And that's what we talked about as far as setting the precedent. So let's continue. Thank you very much, Kondu. In event the cost cap adjudication panel determines that the F1 team has committed a minor overspend breach, adjudication panel may impose a financial penalty and or any minor sporting penalties. Okay. So there you go. We haven't gotten into. Now we're about to get into what is generally said as a major. It's really called a material. Okay. So we're about to get into that so I can show you the differences there. All right. So let's get into that real quick. So let's transition back over. Next is the material overspend, which is generally categorized as a major overspend. And this is by 5% or more. The minor is 5% or less. So F1 team submits its full reporting, relevant cost therein exceeds the cost cap by 5% or more. Bravo. Following the review, the documentation where applicable, conclusions of any investigation undertaken by the cost cap administration panel, independent firm as well, relevant cost cap been determined to exceed the cost cap by 5% or more. In the event, okay, now this is where we're going to get into these two, right? We're going to go back up here to minor. In the event that the cost cap panel determines that a minor overspend breach was committed, the cost cap adjudication panel may impose a financial penalty and or a minor sporting penalty. So this is where you started hearing the discussion of if they get this, they can only penalize them this much, right? Okay, now you see that in minor, it says financial penalty or a minor sporting penalty, all right? So let's go back over. So with the major, in the event, you can impose constructor championship point deduction and additionally may impose financial penalty. You also may do other minor or material sporting penalties. And you also see in there, you could have in there, it should be that the constructor championship points. Okay, I don't see the drivers in there, but constructor championship points. And this is where everybody was talking about, listen, they should be given. They should be issued to this. Red Bull Racing, Galactica says, will blame Danny for overspending. Right. They're going to blame Daniel's reserve marketing job for their overexpenditure. Okay. Which, if you go in some of the regulations, you may find that there are exclusions as well. Right. So paying Danny might not be part of the cost cap, but I'm pretty sure they'll find a way to do that because remember, Red Bull also tried to get the world to believe that Nui was just a third-party contractor, trying to find a way to exclude him from the cost cap. 083 says you will never get integrity from people that are so comfortable with corruption. Do not really trust the FIA to do the right thing. And we've seen this as much in AD. We just saw this recently with Ferrari and Carlos. I don't think they did the right thing there. Yeah, right. And I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell. Yo. 083 say he got a bridge. You want to buy it. It's in Brooklyn. Good view. Doesn't smell when it rains. Matter of fact, cheesecake's right down the street. Big shout out to you for that. So let's get back over to this, okay? When they speak of aggravating, and stick with me because we're also going to talk about what I think should be done going forward in the future. I think some things should be changed. Aggravating and mitigating factors, okay? These are things that they're going to outline basically to say, now this is where things, now listen, this is where things are in addition to that you can take into consideration. Any element of bad faith, dishonesty, willful concealment, okay? It doesn't say that it's mandatory that these things are considered. So when a lot of people try to go based off of, well, he said fraudulent. Ross Brun said fraudulent. No, it can be and shall be taken into consideration. Those are not outlined in the major or minor or material or minor breaches. It's not a mandatory thing that they say, well, it wasn't done in fraudulent terms. No, it's that. These are additional factors that you can take or shall be taken into consideration when determining the penalty, okay? So it being fraudulent does not mean that it negates them being penalized for championship points or penalized above or in accordance to what this shall be done. So as we get right here, it also talks about this is the most important thing right here for us coming into this year. Multiple breaches. Multiple breaches. So at this point in time, with what you just saw there, multiple breaches, that would say to us, if Red Bull pop up as to breach the cost cap again, that there is no way or reason, especially if it's a materials breach, even if it's a minors breach, you've breached multiple times, that we should not see a reduction in championship points. If we don't see that, they're going to have hell or high water trying to explain why. And these are my reasons for this. And now this is fact. This is not hate on Red Bull. This is just the truth. Red Bull were one of the only 10 teams to decide not to cooperate or participate in the mock trial runs as far as the cost cap adjudication panel and the FIA allowing teams to have a practice run at going through what is going to be expected of you during this cost cap era. This way we can help you understand if there are things that you're not doing, what you should be doing, what you should be reporting, and what you should not. Red Bull chose not to participate in that. That is their own fault. Ignorance is not going to be excused for your penalty, but evidently it happened anyway, okay? The other thing is this. You breached already, and if you breach now, it should be definitely known to everybody. We are going to use you this time, if no other time, to set a precedence that we did not set last time. That needs to be done. If Red Bull props, and I don't know if Red Bull has breached again. Okay, I do know last time they were talking that loud stuff about other teams breached, they were one of the teams that breached. And here they are again talking about 6 teams breached. So why would I think anything less than they are probably one of the 6 teams that breached? That's only looking at correlation. That's only looking at what's been done in the past. All right. So let's go back over to here. So as you see right here, multiple breaches of these financial regulations in the reporting period. Breaches of these financial regulations in respect to previous reporting periods, which is, again, pretty much multiple. And then quantum of a breach of the cost cap, failure to cooperate with the cost cap administration board. Okay. Now, let's get ready to go into this section. Sylvia Wick Kelly says FIA say multiple. They'll turn it around and say 3 times, giving them another excuse to get away from breaching. And this is what I'm going to say about that, right? Let's say they say multiple. Multiple Is any multiplication more than one? That's multiple times. What they would have needed to say is say a few breaches or a couple breaches. Since they didn't, they do leave a gray area in there, right? And she brings up a very good point. But what they do then will tell us a lot more about how we cannot trust the FIA to be a good governing body for Formula One. I told you we need a governing body. If the FIA cannot do their job effectively and efficiently, they need to find another governing body, or they need to get rid of it and clean house and do what needs to be done. Up until this point, the FIA have proved more than not that they are not qualified for the job. No, let me not say qualified. They are not capable of doing the job that is needed for Formula One to be the sport that needs to be building forward, okay? So now let's go ahead, let's get into this next section because I think that this is very important. So we're going to look at this. Cost cap adjudication panel. So remember, you have the cost cap adjudication panel and you have the ABA, which is the accepted breach agreement. We saw this much with Red Bull. So let's look at the lesser of the two first, all right? So the cost cap administration determines that the F1 team commits a procedural or a minor breach. The cost cap administration may propose sanctions for such breach, which should be based on the same factors. All right, so we're going to skip on down. The cost cap administration may enter into an accepted breach agreement with the F1 team, reflecting the acceptance. There shall be no right of appeal in respect of any decision by the cost cap administration as to whether to enter into an ABA or not. This is what I'm going to say about that. All right. So when you enter into an ABA, it's basically you saying that, hey, we did this. We're admitting to this. How can we work? It's like a plea agreement, right? It's like a plea bargain. This is a plea bargain deal. Now we're going to let you come in and we're going to, you're not going to get these championship points. We're going to allow you to kind of say you screwed up. Galactic is the entire doc show by gray for all the loopholes. True. There are plenty of gray areas in here that definitely shouldn't be in here. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So stick with me because I'm going to give you what I think they should do in order to lock things in more and to make things a bit more scary for teams to consider cheating their other opponents in a competition season. So that's what the ABA is. Hey, we're going to go in, we're going to do this. Now, here we go as far as the cost cap adjudication panel. It says the cost cap adjudication panel will comprise a panel of independent judges who will hear and determine cases of alleged breach of these financial regulations. All right. The adjudication panel may appeal to the ICA, the cost cap adjudication panel, and ultimately the ICA have final authority in determining whether or not an F1 team has complied with these financial regulations. All right. So let's get into let's get into this. Let's get into the big part of this. And this is what I'm going to say. Going forward, I believe that teams should have to adhere according to this. So if you have, this is how I think it should be structured out. If you have a minor breach, and this is your first time having a minor breach, I do think that the ABA term should be offered to your team. All right. Now, what Red Bull did, this is where my second part comes into that. If you have the ABA come to you with said proposed penalty and you don't agree with it, you decide that you don't like it, I do not think then the ABA and the team should be able to go back to the table like Red Bull was allowed to and then say, hey, that amount of money is too much. It should be less. Hey, you know what? The amount of time that you're going to dock us in the wind tunnel, that's too much. Like we need more time than that. That's what they allowed Red Bull to do. That's not what you're supposed to. That's like you going to your kid and saying, hey, you cheated in school or you got in a fight or you went and bullied somebody in school. I'm going to beat your tail or I'm going to put you in the corner or I'm going to suspend you for 3 weeks from your phone, your games. And then you know what? You decide the kid's like, hey, 3 weeks away from social media. Mom, dad, grandparents, that's way too much. Like a week is hard enough. Okay, we'll do a week. That's what they allow Red Bull to do. I don't think that should be the case. So in the event of minor breach, you get one chance with the ABA. You get one offer from the ABA. If you don't like that offer, then immediately you go to the cost cap adjudication panel, wherein then what do they say? They will comprise a team of judges. They will look at your case, and if they find out they didn't like it, they're going to breach you. You're going to be breached, and you're going to lose championship points. That's it. You had your opportunity to go with the ABA. You didn't like your offer. Now that's why you're here, and this is what you're getting. That's what they should do in face of a minor. So in a material breach, which is considered a major breach, 5% or more, it's automatic. There's no ABA. You automatically go to the cost cap adjudication panel. No, don't pass go, collect 200. No, you automatically cut across the board, go right to jail, and that's what should happen if you have a material or what is generally referred to as a major breach, 5% or more. There's no ABA offering here. You're done. You're going to the panel, and they're going to go ahead and decide what your penalty is going to be, and championship points are included in that, likely a financial, everything. You get the whole shebang. You get the whole shebang. You get the whole smorgasbord because you breached major. Now, if it's just a procedural breach, I think you get ABA up until 3 times. If you do a procedural breach 3 times, you're after your third time, on your third time, you're going to the cost cap adjudication panel. If you have 3 procedural breaches, you're going to the cost cap adjudication panel. At that point in time, we can reset, or they can do if it's consecutive or within a certain time period. But yeah, procedural breach is not as bad. But I also think this, in the face of a minor breach, if you breach minorly 2 times, which would be Red Bull if they do this time, there is no ABA. There is no ABA for you. You already got your one offer when you breached minor the first time. You do this a second time, evidently you didn't learn your lesson, or you didn't do your due diligence to make sure that your documentation, your expenditures throughout the competition season adhere to the cost cap panel. We're going to make sure you do it this time. So guess what? Your minor breached twice. Now you're going, there's no ABA for you. You go to the cost cap adjudication panel. See ya. That's what I think should be done. That is how I think it should be ruled. And another thing that I think going forward, because think about what we had last season. We had a bunch of funny business, right? If you think about it, we were supposed to find out about these certificates and which teams breached on a Wednesday. I believe it was October 5th. They didn't give us this until like the 10th or 11th, which was what? Which was after the Japanese GP. What happened in the Japanese GP? This is just, tin hat talk, but this is factual tracking of dates. I might be off a day or so, but the progression is going to be accurate. We had that funny business. Galacticus, give fine money to young drivers, lower their costs. I do. Yeah. Fine money. I think it should go into things like the Hamilton Commission, the inclusion, diversity programs, women programs, the F1 Academy. Yeah, it should be structured that way. Definitely going to something that's going to help development of Formula One sport from the lower ranks and up. So this keep track with me here though. Thank you, Galacticus. We had the funny situation, right? Even within this already funny situation of them revealing what happened, what was going to be happening as far as the cost cap, which teams breach. In the Japanese GP, we had a race that did not reach its minimum of amount for teams to get full points. So therefore, Max was not going to be awarded championship there, right? He was going to have to wait. He was going to come inevitably anyway, but he was going to have to wait. Now they go back all of a sudden, do a whole little shindig thing, and now Max is awarded there. Then we don't find out until like later in the month in October, finally their penalty. SCR-07, there should not be a grouping for breach, minor, or major. Either you did it or did not, period. You know what? I like that too. I do agree. Minor, major, 5% or more. You got a very good point, fam. Either you breached or you didn't. Now, I do think that there should be a separate for procedural and let's just call it expenditure breach. Let's just call it that. Let's call it procedural breach and expenditure breach, a spending breach. So if you only breach by documentation alone, like you failed to turn in on time, your documents were out of order, but everything that was entailed on the documents was correct, you failed to, do something like that. If it's not anything to do with money, it's only like the paperwork, the time, procedural breach should exist. Now, if you do anything that it's 5%, whatever, if you spend any amount of money over the cost cap amount, which at that point in time, I think was 145 million, And then it was 140 and 135 million, which I think some of those things have been adjusted due to going forward, more races out or whatever. We can find out. We can talk about that later. If you breached anything over that, you're in breach. You're in breach. So that is a good point. I'll go with that. So then going forward, then they claim that. I think this. You got enough time to have these documents ready, right? They already had turned in their documents to the 31st. We just finished taxes on the 18th, was the deadline in the U.S. I finished my taxes. I got to pay the government again. Every year we owe them for some reason. I don't understand all the taxes and the money we pay, and I'm still continuously paying these guys. It's ridiculous. So you definitely need to make sure when these certificates are supposed to come out, they come out. You got plenty of time. There's no reason we should be waiting for you. When the penalty is supposed to come out, it needs to come out. There's no we already know what's going on here. You breached. This is what you got. This is what needs to happen. We're letting everybody know. I think it was a bunch of BS and crap that had happened last time. And I know it was a bunch of dancing. And I believe a bunch of dancing was due to, listen, we don't want to shadow, Red Bull getting the driver's championship and Max getting it. So we can kind of put it off. No, you deal in the bed that you made. You lie in it. Here's your championship, but you know what? You breached same day. We're letting this out. Like, hey, I'm sorry. We let it out before. You got to deal with it. Like, but you still got your trophy. You just need to put it out. We need to cut all the crap for the show and for the entertainment. Do what's right for the sport. Do what's right for competition, and we will be entertained. I think there's too much manufacturing going on right now. And that's part of my problem with Formula One. I think they're doing too much manufacturing. I think they're doing too much. We can make this happen, and guess what? It'll look good in DTS. This will body good. You're doing too much pumping. You're doing too many butt injections. And when you do that many butt injections, that proportion ain't looking right. And right now, Formula One is not looking right. The FIA do not look like they can do their job. The FOM, you're looking incompetent. Stefano, what are you talking about? You want to add a sprint race to every damn race weekend, and you can't even get the race format right for the sprints. You think separating the sprints from the GP is going to make teams go harder than that? No, we told you here at Wolfpack what to do with the sprint format in order to make it make sense and make it competitive. You still ain't even doing that. It's no excuses. So let me know what you all think as far as this cost cap situation, because we're about to come up on it again. It's going to come up sooner than you know. We're going to be here. For some reason, Red Bull has decided that they want to come out and say again, Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, they want to try to dry snitch on 5 other teams because they're probably in that. Now, I'd be surprised if Red Bull's not, only because last time they did this, they were. That's the only reason I'm going to be surprised. But keep in mind also last season, what happened? What happened last season? Red Bull didn't bring their weight reduction package. You think that was because they didn't want to, or you think that was because they already knew they was up there on the line or fell over the fence already, and this was just going to be egregious if they brought that package and had to include that into the cost cap? It was going to be bad. I don't know. It could have been either or. FIA or FOM need to chill and make smart decisions. You're right, Galacticus. They do. They do need to chill, and they do need to make smarter decisions. Up until this point in time, they're not. They're doing less of that. They're doing less of making smarter decisions. I made the video. Go back and check it on Ferrari. I thought that was egregious. I thought that was disappointing. That now I'm going to say this because people seem to think commenting that I am saying that Carlos didn't do what he did in order to be penalized. I'm not saying that. Carlos hit Alonso. He spun Alonso out. To me, it was a first corner, first lap incident, but you penalized him. He did it. All right. Regardless if his tires weren't up to temp or it was a sunlight in his eyes, whatever the case was, he hit Alonso. We all know DOT rules and driving rules. If you hit somebody from the back, more than likely, it's going to be your fault. You're getting the ticket. So my problem is this. I'm not saying he didn't do it. What I'm saying is if Carlos gets a penalty, then there are 2 other drivers that should have got a penalty in Gasly and Logan. I'm not hearing all this crap about, well, Gasly and Ocon agreed that, it was their fault. Since when has it been something to say because you agree that it's your fault, you still don't get penalized? Ocon was not at fault. Gasly clearly came over on his teammate on top of entering back into the race unsafely. It's Gasly's fault. period. It's Gasly's fault. He was off track. He came back on track unsafe, and then he ran into his teammate. It doesn't matter if they both agreed to take a portion of the fault. There was somebody who was more at fault, and that was Gasly. Logan hit De Vries from the back. Meanwhile, De Vries avoided a similar collision with cars in front of him, and Logan didn't. Logan should get a penalty. That's what I'm saying. Period. You summoned Alpine drivers, yet you didn't give Carlos the opportunity and summon him. Now, also, I may mention that Ferrari did a horrible job at preparing their documents. So we will see if Ferrari prepared their documents correct as far as the cost cap. We're also going to see what's up with Mercedes. Toto came out saying that, hey, the W14's pace is just the tip of the iceberg. We're waiting to see that. Will they have breached? I don't know. Their car hasn't changed much. You know, there's a bunch of other things that we could talk about, but it's not impossible that Mercedes may have breached. We don't know how much they had to do in order to get the pace that they got. All right. Even though in perspective of the rest of the grid, it wasn't a great accomplishment, still they made podiums and Lewis got second. So evidently the W14 is not completely trash, but if you want it to be a championship car, it's not there yet. Nowhere near there. Red Bull, we don't know how much more pace they got. I believe they have more in that car. It is a beautifully designed car by Adrian Newey. He's done an awesome job with it. And like I've said plenty of times, when you have all three, when you got the machinery, when you got the team, and then you got the driver, it's going to be hard to stop. But we'll see how far that actually goes as things will start to change for other teams, will start to develop and get closer and closer to that top three spot. So big shout out to you all. Just want to come on, talk about this cost cap situation. Definitely felt like it was something we needed to address with these statements coming out about 6 other teams breaching. Why don't you just talk about yourself? Why don't you just talk about yourself if you breached or not? If you want to tell us that it's possible that we breached and will be there. That's way more respectful than you trying to come out and allude that 6 other teams possibly will breach this season. That's not making it better for you. It doesn't make you look any better either. It makes you look better if you just come out and say, listen, it's possible that we will have breached as a team. We're still looking into it, but don't be surprised if we end up back on that list. Because if you do, I'm going to be looking for them to enforce the maximum penalties on you, because they should. You're a repeat offender. That's clearly why I'm saying what I'm saying, because you're a repeat offender. That would mean that you have cheated in 2 competition seasons back to back. So, hey, that you deserve to get it. That's the way it works. So I'm out. Big shout out to the fam. We will have a race this Sunday, but it will be later. I will have to fly out of town to handle some situations and things going on. So I'll have to fly in and out of town and be back for that. Galactic says teams will just pay fine and eat less shrimp. But we will have the race this Sunday. It will be later than 11 a.m. I will post everything up. It will be a quick flight. You know, it's going to be quick in the morning back, but it won't be back before 11 a.m. I will be back by then, and then I will set everything up and we'll go. So I'll post the times for that. Give me enough time to get back, get settled in. Also, if you're a Wolfpack family member like Ed Grace and you have a green badge like so, you need to get with me in the Discord group. Don't get with me in the comment section. Don't get with me in the community threads. You need to go ahead and get into the Discord. Contact me through DM once you get in there. Send me your shipping address and your name, and I will ship you out. I just got a boatload of shirts in, and I'm going to be getting them wrapped up and into the packaging and ready to ship. Get with me in the Discord. There is a video for members only that gives you instructions on how to enter the Discord. Don't ask for a link. You don't need a link. I've already prepared and made it an easy process. If you're a Wolfpack Family YouTube member, you will automatically be able to understand how to get into the Discord. All right. Big shout out. If you need to reach out to anybody, there are plenty of people in here that will help you. Mary Beanie's in here. Uno Patrick is in here. Blue Diva's in here. Sylvia Wicks in here. Galacticus is in here. Any one of my wonderful, lovely family members that I've just told you about, which we have more, but they are definitely people who step up and don't mind guiding you in there. They will assist you in the video comment section on how to do those things. All right. There's a video and you should be able to get it. So big like to you all. Big love to you all. I appreciate you all. This is going to be an awesome year. I'm going to be doing something different at the end of this year. I'm trying to get it together, all right, for people that have supported the channel more than the VIP tier 1 level. I'm going to do something different for the tier 2. I'm going to look at it and in that landscape, because not a lot of people get tier 2. Like tier 2 is a very rare atmosphere. Okay. You got a few tier 2 people in here, but I'm going to do something different just for people, period, that have supported the channel even more and far and beyond. So be on the lookout for that announcement. Also, things are going to be coming to fruition. I'm going to try to shoot the promo video for the prizes that will be given for our racing series that will be coming up after the Formula One season. That's going to be lit as hell. You do not want to miss that. And we're talking about like $1,500 to $2,000 worth of gaming gear. You don't want to miss that. All right. So I'm peace.